Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a very special OG Trade Machine show here on the Basketball Zone YouTube channel. I'm your host, Leo Bias, and today, as always, we have a very special guest, my brother from another mother, Vince Miracle. How you feeling, man? Right now, all these comments are coming in from your Twitter account. They're telling you to, not as bad as the other day, but read some of these comments before we get this show going.
Some of these comments. Let's see. Rashawn Holmes is halfway out the door. Why would the Raptors do this? Is a big
Okay?
one. And I'm not
Okay.
going to say the trade yet for those who haven't seen it
Right.
on Twitter. Another one. This is from Creo on Twitter. I'm going to shout you out by your name. It was another day where I asked the basketball gods to abolish the trade machine because who the fuck would do this trade?
Okay.
Was that one? Insert Sacramento Kings player and the 4th overall pick. It will never be enough. Why would anybody do this? And 2 picks plus OG Anunoby is OD. Maybe 2 players, but definitely not 2 picks. So all
Wow.
this type of stuff and more. I think a lot of people forgot how good Rashawn Holmes was as a starter, and I also think I said this best earlier, right? And we talk about it all the time. Fan bases will do 2 things. They'll overvalue their players, and they'll downplay the other team's players.
Yeah,
And I
all the
said that's
time.
what's trade machine magic. That's trade machine magic, and that's why I found
100%.
so much fun in this.
So before we get it started, man, huge shout out to our new sponsor, Captain Crab, located in Elk Grove. They are family owned and operated. And, Captain Crab is a casual, family friendly restaurant that specializes in Louisiana style Cajun seafood and specialty cocktails. And of course, they have fabulous happy hour deals, family owned and operated, as I said. So definitely check them out as soon as possible. Tell them that Cowbell Kingdom sent you, and they will take care of you. Phenomenal food, man. Not the cheapest because the quality is amazing. And as you guys know, seafood is extremely expensive right now. But it's a great time. It's a great experience. And that's what it's all about, man. Support your local businesses so that the economy can continue to be on the upswing, man, because we really need that for this economy. My brother, 4 potential trades for OG. Please like, share, and subscribe. Let's get to the first one. This one's interesting. Raptors-Bulls, Alex Caruso, Patrick Williams, and a Portland 2023 first-round pick for OG. Give me your thoughts on this one.
I mean, for this one, it was mainly just trying to find a deal that would allow the Raptors to add more defense to their starting unit. Obviously, Caruso, they love him as a defender out on the wing, but you're going to get Lonzo Ball back. You're really just hoping that Caruso plays that 20 to 25-minute role. Over here, as my dog's like doing tricks on the ground, she's like rubbing her back all swinging around. But yeah, I mean, I think Patrick Williams is a good player, but he's been injury prone as well, so you don't really know where he is in terms of his development. I mean, obviously the Bulls would know more than I. But in return, you get OG Anunoby under a contract for 3 years, who showed that he can be a scorer, he can be obviously a really good defender, and I really don't even think we've seen the true ceiling of this player yet at 24 years old. So I like the deal for both sides. The first round pick, I mean, you already have one of your own in 2023, and if Portland's really looking at retooling their roster instead of rebuilding their roster, and they're going to try and build around Dame one more time and make this playoff push, it's still going to be a late first round pick, which you're still going to have one. So I think it's a really good player for someone that is under contract for 3 years and is still only 24 years old.
Personally, I love the trade for Chicago, and I know a lot of people will want to downplay OG because he's been injury prone. But when you look at the full package, right, 25 years old this summer, complete monster defensively, 6'8", 6'9", with an incredible wingspan. Just, to me, he's a top 5 defender when healthy. But again, availability is the best ability, and he hasn't been available as much. And every time he tries to get into the flow of things and is looking good, he gets injured. And then it takes him a little bit to really get to the point where he should be. But again, he has improved every year. Like, his offensive game is improving, and that's a scary thought because, again, 6'8" dudes don't grow on trees, Vince, and we know that, and we understand how valuable an asset Toronto has here, whether or not they want to trade him or not, because the reports are he's unhappy. You see the type of size that they have with Siakam, with Scottie Barnes, with the emergence of a Scottie Barnes. So he may be, going down the ladder, is what the reports are surfacing. And again, what is his role? How does he view himself? And can the Raptors find the right trade partner that makes sense for them? Or, again, he's under contract, so he's going to have to either be a professional play and just play it out, or accept the fact that Scottie Barnes, to me, is taking a huge step next year. What does that mean for his game? We'll see, but in terms of the value that they may, receive, again, to me, it's more addition by subtraction, right? You get Alex Caruso, Patrick Williams, also injury prone, but he's also a big kid with a lot of skill. He was taken the year before Scottie Barnes, both from Florida State, so that should be interesting. And then the pick, an extra asset for Toronto since they lost their asset in the Thaddeus Young trade to the Spurs. So yeah, it's interesting. I wouldn't do it from Toronto's perspective, but I do understand it because, again, go ahead.
I just still feel like Toronto, and I know a lot of Raptors fans hate it when I say it because I mean they were in the playoffs, they were battle tested with the Sixers in the playoffs this season, but I still feel like they're in that in between stage of figuring out, is this a moment where we're trading away Freddie Van Vliet and still staying competitive? Are we trading away Siakam? Like, are we building around this new young core that's OG and Scottie Barnes? And that's where I think you get a guy in Caruso that can. I think he's a great stopgap filler. He plays defense, but then to get a guy in Patrick Williams, who I believe is 22 years old, 23 years old as well, still relatively young, has shown plenty of upside in terms of his defense. And if you show the development of what you can do with OG Anunoby, with OG, he was never known as an offensive player like that. I mean, he was purely just a defensive player, just like Patrick Williams. They're both going through health concerns. You're basically getting another type of OG Anunoby back in Patrick Williams. You're getting a first round pick back, as well as getting a defender that seems to be loved by all in the bald eagle that is Alex Caruso. So I think it makes sense for the Raptors there.
Caruso would be amazing. I'm just like from where the Raptors are at. Again, you're right. They're in the middle. Like, what direction are they going to choose? I think they're going for the wins, right? And I feel like they're a piece away. If I were them, I would go after a guy like Donovan Mitchell, a guy like a Bradley Beal, because that would really speed up the process. They're already there. Like, they already made the playoffs. They made some noise. They have a young star in Scottie Barnes. That's how I would play it. Get rid of Van Vliet before his contract, and before someone pays him $25 million, which is insane to me, as you heard last show. But it's not a terrible trade, obviously, because Caruso is a glue guy and he'd be great for that culture. But yeah, it's definitely something to think about. Let's move on to trade number 2. This one's interesting. John Collins for OG. I wouldn't do it if I'm the Raptors, but if I'm the Hawks, I'm like licking my fingers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, OG is the perfect fit for them.
Yeah.
In terms of plays defense, can shoot the three, and really is a wing defender. And then that you have a guy in Clint Capella still
100%.
right there behind you. So I feel like it doesn't really make too much sense for the Raptors.
They would have to trade like a first round pick, like unprotected.
I mean, I think John Collins is a really good player, but he's an
I'm not in love with
power
him.
forward.
Yeah.
He's just an undersized power forward. Like, he's the size of, he's 2 inches taller than Harrison Barnes. Like, that would be putting it into perspective for how tall John Collins is, And so, and then also, I just want to hit on this real quick. So I didn't see the report that said that OG Anunoby is unhappy. All I saw was that the best way to trade and potentially get certain assets back would be for OG Anunoby, but supposedly that the Raptors have said that their main 6 guys were untouchable at the trade deadline. There's nothing coming from the team that's saying that has changed, but maybe getting closer. People are thinking that will be the player that's moved on, because if they're starting to just stay competitive for the wins, Pascal is going to be the guy that's going to need him to stay there. I think that's obvious. Pascal needs to stay if you're going for wins. And then that's where it comes back to the conversation we just had, which is, Is it good? Is it good enough for the Raptors to continuously be 6, 7, 8, making the playoffs, but knowing that you're first, second round out every single time? Because with this current roster construction, I don't think it's championship worthy when you still have teams like the Milwaukee Bucks that are stacked or anything like that. And like you
Well,
said, to
it
go after
depends
a
on how
Don,
you view Scottie Barnes, right? Like, is Scottie Barnes a guy that you're like, okay, he's a Jason Tatum type player to where he's going to elevate his team to that extent? So that's where the perspective can potentially change and how you view him and his development moving forward.
I think he's a core guy. I
So
think
you don't
he
think he's a
averages.
star?
No, I don't. I'm not gonna say that because I think
I do.
I don't
I
know
do.
because I think he could potentially be it. It's just more of I want to see that jump shot from three develop more. Even though he showed he can hit clutch baskets when it matters, he can drive it up the floor. I feel like he's a very interesting player, but he would need another part. And my big thing about bringing all this up is you brought up Donovan Mitchell. I think for a team like the Raptors to acquire a player like a Donovan Mitchell who's still in his mid 20s and is able to put up big numbers and is a star, you need to get assets. And that's why I think a deal with the Bulls where you get Caruso, Williams, and another first rounder, those are young players. Contracts are going to get close to expiring by the time, 2 years left on a deal. Everyone would love that at those prices. And you have another first round pick to trade later on
So
down the
would you
road.
trade OG and Van Vliet for Donovan Mitchell?
Not both of them. No, I wouldn't do that. I would keep one. I would trade. I think Freddie Van Vliet is going to go to the Lakers, bro. I really do. I'm just putting that out there. But I would trade OG Anunoby and whatever I needed to get Donovan Mitchell in. I would trade OG, Gary
But
Trent Jr. and a first and like multiple firsts for Donovan Mitchell. I think that would just make your team automatically better to have Pascal, Scottie Barnes, Donovan Mitchell, and if
who
you
would you
still have
trade
Freddie
Van
Van
Vliet?
Vliet,
Like, are you saying Raptors, Lakers? Like, who would you get in that deal?
I don't know. I mean, because Van Vliet's gonna get
Nobody.
paid. Van
Yeah.
Vliet's gonna get paid. So I mean, it's gonna have to be like a three-way sign and trade deal. I think, but I think the Lakers would definitely want that. I think they would. I mean, do you? This is gonna sound horrible, but I mean, like, do you acquire a first round pick? I mean, no, because that first round pick's gonna be worth. I mean, you're not want a late first round pick and an expiring Russell Westbrook contract just to get a first round pick. You know what I mean?
Rondon
That's what's
one
so
says
hard.
these guys don't know how the Raptors build their team. Yeah, we do know how the Raptors build their team, but at the same time, there's a different perspective on how you go about it. And going out and getting a Donovan Mitchell changes the complexion of this organization moving forward. I understand Raptor fans. Oh well, we have all 6, 8 guys. Like, yeah, I get that, bro. Like that's not just knowledge that just comes from Toronto, brother. Like, we understand that they build it with length and we know and with defensive versatility. Like, we understand that. Like,
Hmm.
stop. Like, stop.
It's just to give you guys a different look and a different idea of what else is out there and what moves they can make. And currently, as constructed, I mean, I don't think that this team gets you to anywhere further than maybe the sixth seed, and you're in a battle for that first round like they were with the Philadelphia 76ers. But do you really ever see this team beating a Bucks team at full health? Not really. I mean, Giannis is just too unstoppable, and Chris Middleton is just Chris Middleton. Like he's the best. He's one of the best, I think, number two options you could ever ask for, especially next to Giannis. So that's the hard part for me. I just don't. I don't know if they're built for that yet, and so I would always look to acquire assets when possible.
And this third trade is to the Heat. OG going to the Heat. Duncan Robinson, Max Strus, and a 2022 first round pick, which is number 27 this year.
Hmm.
I wouldn't do this trade if I'm Toronto, just because OG is superior in terms of talent in comparison to Duncan or to Max. And I'm like Max's biggest fan. Both Robert and I are always fighting about Max and Trent Jr. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of Trent Jr. I feel
I'm a
like,
Trent Jr. fan.
yeah, well, I'm not, but I wouldn't make this trade as much as I'm a fan of Max Strus because OG he would have been the difference in them beating Boston yesterday, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just feel like this was when I built this trade, it was just mainly based on the fact that it was recency bias. Like the Heat were just in a big game 7 where I feel like they could have used that one extra defender to
Sure.
throw at Brown and Tatum, and they have Duncan Robinson, who I feel like because of what's happened in this playoff of him becoming unplayable essentially, that people just forget how good of a sniper that he is when he is a shooter in the right situation. There's a reason why they paid him the money that he did. And I think shooters' money always get that. I think their value goes down over the years, especially if they don't get to stay in the lineup and their defense doesn't improve. It's not like he was a Danny Green ever. He was always a shooter. So anyone that talks about his money, I feel like that you just got to understand that that's what shooters get paid. Just look around the league. Joe Harris, Duncan Robinson, Buddy Hield. Like, this is the money that they're getting. Strus, I just feel like he is someone that you're going to get that plays defense, shoots threes. He's a streaky player. I feel like he's the small forward version of Marcus Thornton, and I love that about him. It's not taking a shot. He's just so feisty. I love it. And then to get a first round pick when you don't have one this year, I think that just gets you in the door. So you have 27 and 33 when you're the Raptors. So you're essentially getting three really good players this year, and then you lose out on OG.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
I wouldn't do it if I'm the Raptors either.
yeah,
Though, if I'm being honest.
yep. If I find well, okay, well, I'm glad we agree. But this upcoming trade is huge, and I think it's extremely interesting on so many levels. Rashawn Holmes, again, as Vince said, there's a recency bias of this past year was his worst year yet for a lot of reasons. Injuries taking probably the biggest toll, his eye and COVID, and then domestic issues with his ex-wife. And it turned out that, the kid ended up staying with him, and there's a bunch of lying and allegations that really hurt him.
Family passing.
Yeah,
family
so
passing
it
away
was
rough.
there was a lot that went into Rashawn not having a stellar year, in my opinion. And yeah, OG, a 2023 round one pick going to the Kings, and a second round pick, which I don't think is needed in this trade. So just talk about the process and your thoughts on this one before I comment on it.
So for me, Rashawn Holmes, it fills the void exactly what the Raptors need. The Raptors need a starting big man that can get you a walking double-double. He can shift. So like you guys said, that we don't know the Raptors. The Raptors love length and the ability to switch on everything. Rashawn Holmes is one of the best big men that can switch in a pick and roll and guard,
100%.
I would say 2 through 5, anywhere inside the free throw line down, like right above the three-point line down. He's able to chase block. And on top of that, he's a good help side defender. He averaged 1.6 blocks per game in
He's
29
top
minutes
10
as a
shot
starter.
blocker.
Top 10 shot blocker, top 5 in field goal percentage as a starter at 63.7%, averaging 14 and 8 during that time as a starter with the Kings in under 30 minutes per game at 29.2 minutes per game. On top of that, you're getting the number 4 pick, right? So that number 4 pick, most are expecting it to be a guy like Keegan Murray or a Jaden Ivey. And so you can add those type of pieces. So to potentially get a Jaden Ivey, who some are saying could be Ja Morant, or to be getting a guy like Keegan Murray, who can fill in the spot of OG Anunoby as your 3 and D.
He's a Raptor, right? 6'8", 3 and D. Well, that's how you build a team, right?
That's how you build your team. So you're getting 2 guys that fit that exact need right there, right? And in return, the Kings are taking on the risk of OG Anunoby's injury. 43 games the
100%.
prior season, 48 games this season. That 3-year, $17 million, I think, is well worth the price. That's good there. You have to give up that second round pick for Rashawn Holmes. The second round pick is for Rashawn Holmes. So you're buying low on Rashawn Holmes in this deal. OG Anunoby by himself, I think, gets you in picks 7, 8, 9, 10, right? You're giving up an additional lottery, and I changed it online to a top 5 protected just because if you're looking at the trade that I suggested earlier, which would be Portland moving from 7 to 4, would have had to have been Josh Hart a second and a protected first the following year. It's the same thing, except OG is better than Josh Hart, so it's just the protected. You take off that second. The second round pick in this one is only for Rashawn Holmes. I think it makes sense for both sides. It fills a need for both sides. And on top of that, I think the Raptors honestly get the better end of the deal over the Kings because of what that number 4 pick could potentially be. This is a win now move for the Kings as well.
This is a win now, and you're hoping that OG has the upside and the projection that we all believe he can have, right? But the injuries, that has to be a major concern when you make a deal like this. But, man, if just hypothetically say the Raptors continue their path of building the team that the way they do, they draft Keegan Murray at 4. They get Rashawn Holmes, so you fill up your starting center, right? And then you have Precious Achua coming off the bench. and then you get Keegan Murray, which replaces OG right then and there, and then, I mean, that's pretty much it, right? So you get two starters essentially out of this, as opposed to go out and trying to sign that center. Which again, there are pieces like, if they go after a Jakob Poeltl, if they go after a Hartenstein from the Clippers, if they go after, who else is a guy that they've mentioned? None of those guys, and I love Poeltl. I would say Poeltl is the closest thing to Rashawn in terms of value, because Poeltl's going to get paid, like once his contract's up, 12, 13, 14, 15 mil per season as well. So it just comes down to, who would you rather have, Rashawn or Poeltl, right? Like, who would you rather have?
Rashawn or Poeltl?
Both. Just say both from 12 to 15.
I would rather have Rashawn in a first than Jakob Poeltl in a
100%.
late. In like a
100%.
Late. I would rather have Rashawn in the 4th pick than Jakob Poeltl in the 9th pick. Put it that way.
Or would you rather have Jakob Poeltl and OG? I guess is the other perspective from a Raptors fan. Like if they can't sign him yet because he's still under contract, so they would have to trade for him.
Yeah, they'd have to trade for Jakob Poeltl. And I think the Spurs are willing to trade him. I think Jakob Poeltl is like a mixture of Steven Adams and Jonas Valanciunas. Like he's like mixed between both of them.
Would you rather have Miles Bridges or OG? OG in a heartbeat. Well, let me take that back. Not in a heartbeat, but like
heartbeat.
Yeah, right. Like OG, and I say it because he's injury prone. But if he wasn't injury prone, in a heartbeat. Go ahead.
I think OG averaged 20 points per game, almost 2 steals per game, or actually 2 steals per game.
He's nice. He's nice.
I mean,
bro.
He's a really good basketball player. I mean, I think with Miles Bridges, the only reason why we're so infatuated with him right now is he went from being like a borderline starter on that Hornets team to being like the guy this past season. Over 20 points, double-digit rebounds, was like, in fantasy purposes, he was like a top, I think, 35 guy in just pure numbers. So I mean, he's garnered a lot of attention this past season. I want to see him do that when it matters. Like OG put up those numbers, and his team was making the playoffs, and he was playing key roles in those playoffs and guarding the best players in the playoffs. So I think I still lean toward OG over Miles, because Miles is just a scorer over a defender, but I think Miles Bridges is a good basketball player for sure.
Well, I think Miles Bridges is a great basketball player. It's just the fact that he plays like the stretch 4 in today's NBA, can do a little bit of everything. He's just a very good basketball player. So I'm a big fan of Miles Bridges. I had him ahead of Marvin Bagley in that 2018 class. I had him number 4, as a matter of fact. And he's slowly becoming, and he's progressing every single year. So I like where he's headed. He's exactly where I thought he would be. So is he worth the max? No, right? It's going to be interesting to see who pays him that. Will it be Detroit? They're a little bit desperate. Will it be the Kings can't afford him, but it would have to be like a sign and trade deal. But any final thoughts, brother? Go ahead.
I wonder if there's any way OG, because I tried to make a deal for it, but I really couldn't figure it out without giving up something big. But I wonder if there's a way for OG to be any package to Utah for that Rudy Gobert. Like I wonder if that's even in the, like, how that would work. Because you'd have to give up somebody else. Like you'd have to be willing to give up Gary Trent to make the contracts match, because I mean, Rudy Gobert makes so much more than.
I'm just not a big fan of him in the playoffs. He's just so unplayable because the man has no offensive moves.
Can you do a sign and trade deal to get OG to the Suns for Ayton?
That would be a perfect fit for the Suns. That'd be perfect for the Suns.
I think it'd be a perfect fit for the Raptors. Ayton on the Raptors would be amazing.
I just don't think they want to pay him a max deal, and that's what Aiden's going to ask for. I think Aiden has a lot of question marks in terms of character. I guess he wanted Monty fired. I mean,
yeah, but at the same
allegedly.
time, I think Ayton and Scottie Barnes as your young core, that's like your future, while you still have Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam to continue the culture that the Raptors have had. Just like when DeMar DeRozan left, he even did an interview recently when it was DeRozan and Lowry. When they left, they're like, we passed the torch to Fred and Pascal, and right now they're gonna have to pass that down to the next ones. Could those next ones be a duo of Scottie Barnes and Ayton, and whatever other players they get along the way?
Do you view Ayton like that though? Because I don't. I
do.
still think Ayton is a role player.
I think Ayton is a really, really good number 3 option, and could be your number 2 when needed. Like I feel like
I don't think he can be number 2 when needed, bro.
I think people
he's proven
are
that
underestimating
already.
him because he played next to Chris Paul. If you just look, he has a mid-range jumper. I mean, he didn't miss a shot in the playoffs.
But he got better because of Chris Paul, though. Like Chris Paul made him.
Basket and lobs. His rolls to the basket and lobs. He is a. I feel like people forget that he's.
Fred VanVleet ain't doing that. Like Fred VanVleet ain't gonna hook him up like Chris Paul did.
Scottie Barnes is.
Scottie will, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Scottie will, for sure.
I think Ayton is forgotten about how good he has with both hands with those hooks. He has a nice mid-range jumper. I don't know. I feel like he even showed the ability to pass better this year too during the regular season. Like, if he can continue to develop, I mean, man, I still think he's so young and really good. Like, he'll never get to Marc Gasol level, but like I see that type of game in him. I see that type of game in him.
Well, that's going to do it, y'all. Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Drop a comment below after the show as well if you have any questions, any suggestions. Let us know, man. Is there a better trade for OG out there if you're a Raptor fan or if you're a different fan from a different team? Let us know. We really appreciate you guys. And we'll be back potentially tomorrow with more of this draft coverage. Maybe tonight, not really sure. Vince, check out Vince's show on YouTube as well. Or are you having who are you having on today? So live or like pre-recorded?
It's live. It's going to be live. We'll be live in about 30 minutes. We start at noon Pacific Standard Time here for us. It will be me and Bryant West of the King's Herald. He does a lot of their draft coverage. He also just loves my trades, that I post out there. And then later this week, I have Brendan Nunez coming on the show on Friday. And then Thursday, I have NBA Draft Big Board Scout Rafael Barlow joining me. We're going to talk everything about draft coverage there, what he's hearing about Shaedon Sharpe and all this process, and who he's going to start working out for here soon. So a lot of big stuff coming over there, youtube.com/SacKingsNation, and I'll be there in 30 minutes. So come check us out.
Perfect. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.